The first warning the Zelnar's confidence, Admiral Krithix of the Zelnar Collective, stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Dominance, watching the holographic display with practiced ease. For 200 years, the Zelnar had perfected their expansion technique. It was elegant in its simplicity. Send a fleet to the edge of another species' territory, cross the border with obvious intent, and wait for the inevitable response. Most civilizations followed a predictable pattern. They protested loudly, sent threatening messages, mobilized their forces for show, and eventually agreed to sit down for negotiations. During those talks, the Zelnar always gained something valuable: mining rights, trade agreements, or sometimes entire star systems. It was all very civilized, very predictable. The humans were next on the list. Intelligence reports painted them as a young species, barely 300 years into their space age. They controlled a modest region of space with perhaps 40 colonized worlds. Their military was small but well organized. Most importantly, they seemed to prefer diplomacy and exploration over conquest, perfect candidates for the Zelnar strategy. Krithix adjusted his ceremonial armor and addressed his bridge crew.
Navigation. Confirm our position.
The navigation officer, a young Zelnar named Thorol, checked his instruments. Sir, we are at the boundary of human sovereign space. The system they call Epsilon Reach lies ahead. It contains 2 human colonies with a combined population of 8 million. Krithix nodded with satisfaction. Excellent. Communications prepare to broadcast our standard message once we cross. Let them know the Zelnar Collective requires passage through their territory to reach the Orion Expanse. Be polite but firm. The fleet consisted of 12 warships, each one a marvel of Zelnar engineering. Dark hulls covered in advanced armor plating, weapon systems that could level cities, and shield generators powerful enough to withstand sustained bombardment. They were not the largest ships in the galaxy, but they were intimidating enough to make a point. All ships advance formation, Krithix ordered. Take us across the boundary at standard speed. Let's see how quickly the humans respond. The human response, the 12 Zelnar warships glided across the invisible line that marked human territory. Their sensors showed no immediate reaction from the colonies ahead. No alarms, no scrambling defense fleets, nothing. Krithix found this curious. Most species detected border violations within minutes. Perhaps human technology was less advanced than the report suggested. 20 minutes passed. Then a single contact appeared on their sensors. Sir, 1 vessel approaching, Thorol reported. It's a human patrol ship. Light classification. The designation reads UNS under the Excellent minimal armament. Crew complement estimated at 30 individuals. Krithix smiled. 1 patrol ship against 12 Zelnar warships. The humans were either very brave or very foolish. Probably the latter. Open a channel when they hail us, he instructed. Let's be gracious in victory. The human ship took up a position directly in their path, though it made no aggressive moves. A transmission request came through almost immediately. Krithix accepted it, expecting to see a flustered human officer demanding explanations. Instead, the face that appeared on the screen was remarkably calm. The human was a woman with dark hair pulled back in a simple style. Her uniform was neat and unadorned except for captain's insignia. Her name tag identified her as Captain Elena Rivera. This is Captain Rivera of the United Human Space Vessel Vigilant, she said. Her voice carried no emotion, no anger, no fear, just flat, absolute certainty. You have violated human sovereign space. Turn your vessels around immediately and return to your own territory. You will not receive another warning. Krithix blinked. That was the entire message. No demands for explanation, no threats of military action, no opening for dialogue. Just a simple statement and a warning. Captain Rivera, Krithix said smoothly, using his most diplomatic tone. I am Admiral Krithix of the Zelnar Collective. We mean no hostility to your people.
Yeah.
We simply need to pass through this region to reach the Orion Expanse. Surely we can come to some arrangement that benefits both our civilizations. Captain Rivera's expression did not change. You have received your warning. Turn back now. Her hand moved towards something off-screen. And if we choose to continue our course, Krithix asked, still maintaining his pleasant demeanor. Then you will face the consequences of your decision, Rivera said simply. Turn back now. The transmission ended. Krithik stared at the blank screen for a moment, then laughed. His officers joined in, the sound echoing through the bridge. "Did you see that?" he said to his crew. "One tiny patrol ship and she thinks a warning is enough. These humans are more naive than I thought." His tactical officer, Commander Vex, frowned slightly. "Sir, her certainty was unusual. Perhaps we should proceed with caution." "Caution?" Krithix waved a hand dismissively. "Vex, I have conducted this operation 17 times. It always follows the same pattern. They protest, we ignore them, and within a day we are negotiating favorable terms. These humans are no different. Continue on course." The trap springs closed, the Zelnar fleet moved deeper into human space. The Vigilant did not follow them. It did not fire weapons or attempt to block their path. Captain Rivera simply transmitted a detailed report to something called Human Defense Command, then turned her ship and departed the area. "They are retreating, sir," Thoril announced. Of course they are. What else could they do? But something felt wrong. The ease of it all troubled him. Most species put up more resistance, even if it was just symbolic posturing. The human captain had seemed too calm, too certain, like someone who had stated a fact and saw no need to elaborate. "Sir, should we perhaps slow our approach?" Vex suggested quietly. That human seemed very confident about consequences. Krithix shook his head. "Commander, you worry too much. Every species makes threats they cannot back up. It is all part of the negotiation day. By this time tomorrow, we will be sitting across from human diplomats, discussing mining rights and trade agreements. This is how civilized space works." The fleet continued toward Epsilon Reach. Hours passed with no further contact from human forces. The silence was complete and somehow more unsettling than threats would have been. As they entered the outer system of Epsilon Reach, their sensors detected the two human colonies. Both appeared to be standard settlements, with light defensive platforms. Nothing that could threaten even one Zelnar warship, much less 12. "Prepare to broadcast our formal requirements," Krithix ordered. "Docking privileges, refueling rights, and access to the mineral surveys of this system. Standard terms." But before the communications officer could transmit, every alarm on the bridge began screaming at once. "Jump drive offline. I cannot restart it. Weapons systems locked. Shields fluctuating wildly. Something has seized control of our navigation computer." "All ships report the same problem, sir." Krithix grabbed his command chair as the ship shuddered. "What is happening?" "Vex report." The tactical officer's face had gone pale. "Sir, we are being jammed. Multiple signals are interfacing directly with our systems. It is like nothing I have ever seen. Our computers are still functional, but we cannot control our own ships." Through the main view screen, Krithix saw something that made his blood run cold. Ships were emerging from jump points all around his fleet. But these were not warships. Wait, they were industrial vessels. "The medical bay is available if anyone needs treatment." "Where are you taking us?" Krithix demanded, trying to maintain some dignity. "To the diplomatic vessel Harmony," Martinez replied. "Admiral Chen wants to speak with you personally. She is very thorough about explaining our policies to visitors." They were given rooms that were comfortable and clearly secure, though the doors were not locked. Krithix could hear his officers talking in adjacent rooms, their voices stunned and confused. He sat on the bed and tried to process what had happened. In less than 6 hours, the Zelnar Collective had lost 12 warships without a single shot fired, without a single casualty on either side. It was impossible. It violated everything he understood about how spacefaring civilizations interacted. A chime sounded at his door. "Admiral Krithix, Admiral Chen will see you now." 2 human officers escorted him to a meeting room. It was not an interrogation chamber or a prison cell. It was a comfortable conference room with a table, chairs, and a large view screen showing the space where his fleet had been. Only debris fields and cargo haulers remained now. Admiral Chen entered. She was shorter than Krithix had expected, but her presence filled the room. She sat across from him and folded her hands on the table. Her eyes were sharp and calculating. "Let me be absolutely clear about something," Chen said without preamble. "You and your crew are not prisoners of war. We are not at war. You are trespassers who ignored a lawful warning. You will be returned to Zelnar space unharmed within 4 days. You destroyed our ships, Krithik said, his voice barely steady. We dismantled them, Chen corrected, and we will sell the components to recoup our operational costs. Your crews are safe. You are alive. But your ships violated our territory after being explicitly warned. There are consequences for that. This is not how civilized species handle border disputes, Krithik protested. Chen's expression did not change. Admiral, let me explain something about human culture that you clearly do not understand. When we say something once, we mean it completely and absolutely. We do not make idle threats. We do not use warnings as opening positions for negotiation. When Captain Rivera told you to turn back, that was your only opportunity to avoid consequences. But everyone negotiates, Krithik said desperately. That is how interstellar relations work. You test boundaries, you talk, you reach agreements. Not with humans, Chen said simply. She pulled up a holographic display. It showed dozens of incidents over the past century, ships from various species approaching human borders. Each one received a single clear warning. Look at the pattern, Chen said. Some species turned back immediately after the warning. Every one of those species was then invited for formal diplomatic contact. We welcomed them, established treaties, and built positive relationships. Others, like you, ignored the warning. Every single one of those ships was dismantled. Their crews were safely returned home with full documentation of what happened and why. She leaned forward. Do you see, Admiral? We are not random. We are not cruel. We are absolutely consistent. Respect the warning and we treat you as an honored guest. Ignore it and you face consequences. But we never ever harm people who are not actively trying to harm us. Krithik stared at the data. 12 different species over 8 decades. The pattern was undeniable. Humans meant exactly what they said, nothing more and nothing less. My superiors will not accept this, he said quietly. The Zellner Collective has never tolerated such treatment. Then I suggest your superiors listen carefully to the first warning they receive, Chen replied, because we will not give them a second one either. You are free to tell them everything that happened here. In fact, I encourage it. The more species that understand our policies, the less often we have to enforce them. You cannot maintain this across the entire galaxy, Krithik said. Your fleet is not large enough. Your territory is limited. For the first time, Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. Admiral, we do not need the largest fleet. We need other species to understand that we keep our word. That when we draw a line, we mean it. That our promises are absolute, both good and bad. She stood up. You will be transported home tomorrow. I suggest you tell your superiors exactly what happened here. Tell them that humans do not bluff, do not negotiate with trespassers, and do not repeat themselves. Tell them that Captain Rivera's warning was the only one they will ever receive. The lesson learned returned to the collective. Admiral Krithik stood before the Zellner Collective Council in the Grand Chamber on the home world. The 7 council members sat on their elevated platform, looking down at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to barely contained fury. The chamber's walls displayed holographic records of the incident, his 12 proud warships being methodically dismantled by human engineering vessels. It played on a loop, a constant reminder of his failure. Let me understand this correctly, Council Leader Dravik said slowly, his voice dripping with contempt. You lost 12 warships without firing a single shot in defense. Council Leader, the humans disabled our systems remotely, Krithik explained for the 3rd time. We had no control over our vessels. They gave us no opportunity to fight back. Counselor Mira, the military advisor, leaned forward. And this all happened because you ignored a warning from a single patrol ship. The warning seemed like standard diplomatic posturing, Krithik said, though even he no longer believed his own words. Every species we have encountered uses warnings as opening positions for negotiation. How could we have known humans were different? You should have known, Dravik snapped. You should have investigated their culture more thoroughly. You should have proceeded with caution when their response was unusual. Instead, you arrogantly assumed they would behave like everyone else. Krithik lowered his head. I take full responsibility for the failure. Councillor Vren, the youngest member of the council, spoke up. Perhaps we should consider that the humans were serious about their boundaries. Their actions were consistent with their warning. They did not harm our crews. They returned everyone safely. They even provided medical care and comfortable accommodations. Maybe their way of handling borders is simply different from ours, not necessarily hostile. Different. Dravox turned on Vren with anger. They destroyed Zelnar property worth billions of credits. They humiliated our military. They cannot be allowed to stand unchallenged. They dismantled our ships and kept every component, Krithix interjected carefully. Admiral Chen told me they would sell the parts to recoup operational costs. It was methodical, not destructive. There is a difference. Mira studied the holographic displays. Tell me again what this Admiral Chen said about their policies. Krithix recounted the conversation, including the data Chen had shown him. 12 different incidents over 8 decades. Species who heeded the warning were welcomed. Species who ignored it lost their ships but not their lives. The pattern was undeniable. So they claim to be absolutely consistent, Vren said thoughtfully. They give one warning and they enforce it without exception. That is their claim, Krithix confirmed. And based on their historical records, it appears to be true. Dravox stood up, his tall frame imposing. Then we will test this supposed consistency. The Zelnar Collective does not bow to ultimatums from minor civilizations. We will send a proper fleet, not 12 ships, but 40. 40. Let us see if the humans can dismantle 40 warships as easily as they did 12. Council leader, I strongly advise against this course of action, Krithix said urgently. The humans were very clear. They do not repeat warnings. If we send another fleet, they will respond with force. Good, Dravox said coldly. Then we will finally see their true military capabilities. Counselor Mira, assemble Battle Group Omega, 40 of our finest warships. Full combat loadout. I want experienced commanders, not naive idealists. Vren stood up. This is madness. We are risking war over pride. We are defending Zelnar honor, Dravox corrected. If we allow humans to humiliate us without response, every species in this region will think the collective is weak. Prepare the fleet. We move in 5 days. The second crossing 5 days later, Battle Group Omega assembled at the human border. 40 warships, each commanded by veterans of the Zelnar military. The fleet commander was Admiral Sarix, a hard woman who had fought in the Zelnar expansion wars 30 years ago. She did not believe in diplomatic niceties or warnings. She believed in strength. Krithix had been assigned to the flagship as an advisor, though it was clearly also a punishment. He stood on the bridge watching the preparations with growing dread. Admiral Sarix, I must advise one more time, he said quietly. The humans will not negotiate once we cross their border. We should at least attempt formal diplomatic contact first. Your advice is noted and rejected, Sarix replied without looking at him. The Council has given their orders. We will cross human space and establish our right to free passage. If the humans interfere, we will defend ourselves with appropriate force. She turned to her communications officer. Broadcast our message to human space. The message was direct and confrontational. The Zelnar Collective, it stated, was exercising its right to free passage through the region. Any interference would be considered an act of war. The Collective was prepared to defend its ships with all necessary force. The message ended with a demand for safe passage coordinates. They waited. 30 minutes passed with no response. Then a text-only message appeared on their screens. This is the United Human Defense Command. You are hereby warned that crossing into human sovereign space without authorization is a violation of our territory. Turn back now. This is your only warning. Sarix laughed. The exact same message. They truly do not understand who they are dealing with. All ships cross the border. Combat formation. Shields at maximum. Weapons armed but not locked. Let us see what these humans do when faced with real power. The 40 Zelnar warships crossed into human space. Krithix watched the sensor displays, his heart's pounding. No human ships appeared. No alarms sounded. Just silence. They are not responding. The tactical officer reported. No ships detected. No defensive platforms activating. Nothing. They are afraid, Sarix said with satisfaction. 40 warships are more than their engineering tricks can handle. Continue course. Head for the Epsilon Reach colonies. Once we establish our presence there, we will demand compensation for the ships we lost. But Krithix noticed something on the long-range sensors. Admiral, I am detecting unusual readings ahead. It looks like artificial gravity wells being generated. Multiple locations. Gravity wells? Sarek frowned. For what purpose? The answer came 5 minutes later when the fleet emerged from a routine course correction jump. They were surrounded. Not by warships. By weapons platforms, hundreds of them, forming a perfect sphere around the Zelnar fleet. Each platform was small, no larger than a shuttle, but the sensor readings showed devastating power cores. Admiral, those are antimatter warhead platforms, the tactical officer said, his voice shaking. Each one has enough yield to destroy a ship our size. There are 320 platforms around us. At this range, shields would be useless. A transmission came through. Admiral Chen appeared on every screen in the fleet simultaneously. She looked exactly as Krithex remembered. Cold, focused, absolutely certain. Admiral Surex of the Zelnar Collective, Chen said. You were warned. You chose to ignore that warning. But unlike your previous commander, you crossed our border with weapons armed and threats of violence. That changes the situation considerably. Surex stared at the screen with fury and growing fear. We have the right to defend ourselves. You have the right to turn around when warned, Chen replied. You do not have the right to invade our space with military force. Let me be absolutely clear about what is about to happen. You have two choices. Choice 1. You order your fleet to shut down all weapons systems and surrender your vessels. We will dismantle your ships, return your crews safely, and send a very clear message to the Zelnar Collective about respecting our boundaries. Chen paused. Choice 2. You refuse to surrender. In that case, every weapons platform around you will fire simultaneously. Your fleet will be destroyed. Every ship, every life. We do not want this outcome. We do not desire bloodshed, but we will absolutely defend our territory against armed invasion. You are bluffing, Sarek said, but her voice lacked conviction. We do not bluff, Chen said simply. Ask Admiral Krithex. You learned that lesson the hard way. You have 5 minutes to decide. If you do not respond within that time, we will assume you have chosen violence, and we will respond accordingly. The transmission ended. Sarek turned to Krithex, her face pale. Is she serious? Will they really destroy the entire fleet? Krithex looked at the weapons platforms surrounding them, 320 antimatter warheads. At this range, there would be no survivors, not a single one. They will absolutely do it. Admiral Chen does not make empty threats. None of the humans do. When they say something, they mean it completely. But we have 40 warships, Sarek protested. We could fight back. Against 320 platforms that are already locked on target, Krithex shook his head. We would be destroyed before our weapons could charge, and that is assuming the platforms are their only defense. I suspect they have more assets we cannot see. Sarek sat down heavily in her command chair. The bridge crew watched her with desperate eyes, waiting for orders. 4 minutes remained. We were sent here to establish Zelnar dominance, she said quietly. The Council expects us to succeed where you failed. The Council sent us to die, Krithex replied. They did not believe the humans were serious, now we know better. The question is whether we are willing to sacrifice 40 ships and 20,000 lives to prove a point, or whether we accept that humans play by different rules. 3 minutes remained. Sarek closed her eyes. When she opened them again, Krithex saw something he had never seen in a Zelnar admiral before. Fear mixed with wisdom. All ships, this is Admiral Sarek, she said into the fleet-wide channel. Power down all weapon systems. Lower shields. Prepare for boarding procedures. We are surrendering our vessels to human authority. The true lesson, the dismantling process took 3 days. Just like before, human engineering ships worked with methodical efficiency. They took apart all 40 Zelnar warships, preserving every component. The Zelnar crews were transported to human vessels and treated well. Medical care, decent food, comfortable quarters. Not prisoners, but supervised guests. On the 4th day, Admiral Sarek and Admiral Krithex were brought together to meet with Admiral Chen and Captain Rivera. The meeting took place on a human diplomatic vessel in neutral space. The room was simple but elegant. A round table where no one sat at the head. Equal positions for all. I want to thank you both, Chen said, opening the meeting. Admiral Sarek, your decision to surrender saved 20,000 lives on both sides. That took courage and wisdom. Sarx's expression was bitter. I surrendered 40 warships without a fight. The collective will consider me a coward. The collective will learn from your example, Captain Rivera said, speaking for the first time. We have already transmitted full documentation of both incidents to your government. Sensor logs, communication records, everything. Your people will see that we were absolutely consistent. Admiral Krithex received a warning and ignored it. His ships were dismantled, but his crew was safe. You received a warning and came armed for battle. You faced destruction but chose surrender. Your crew is also safe. Chen pulled up a holographic display. Here is what happens next. We will return all Zelnar personnel to your territory within 2 days. The components from your ships will be sold through neutral markets. We estimate the proceeds will cover 90% of our operational costs. The remaining 10% we consider the price of teaching this lesson. And if the collective sends another fleet, Sarx asked, then we will destroy it, Chen said flatly. No more warnings, no more chances to surrender. We have shown you our policies twice now. We have been clear, consistent, and humane. If your leaders choose to test us a third time, we will assume they have chosen war, and we will respond accordingly. Krithex leaned forward. Admiral Chen, help me understand something. Why do humans operate this way? Why not use warnings as opening positions for negotiation like every other species? Chen considered the question carefully. Captain Rivera, would you like to answer that? Rivera nodded. It comes from our history. Earth had hundreds of different cultures, thousands of languages, and countless ways of miscommunicating. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times because of misunderstandings. So we learned to be absolutely clear, to mean exactly what we say. To back up our words with consistent actions. When a human parent tells a child not to touch something hot, that child learns to listen the first time. Chen added, we built our entire civilization on clear communication and consistent enforcement. It is fundamental to who we are. But other species do not operate this way, Sarx said. Most civilizations use warnings as negotiation tactics. We know, Rivera replied. That is why we document everything. That is why we return everyone safely. That is why we meet with you like this to explain our perspective. We understand we are unusual, but we cannot compromise on this. Our consistency is our greatest strength. If we gave second warnings to some species but not others, no one would know where they stood with us. Chen stood up. Admirals, you will both go home and report to your leaders. I hope the Zelnar Collective will choose to respect our boundaries in the future. If they do, we would be happy to begin proper diplomatic relations. We have much we could offer each other through peaceful cooperation. And if they choose to send another fleet, Krithex asked, then we will mourn the unnecessary loss of life, Chen said quietly. But we will not change our policies, we cannot. Our consistency is what keeps the peace. If we made exceptions, if we gave special treatment to one species over another, the entire system would collapse. Every boundary we have would be tested. Every warning would be ignored. We would be forced into constant conflict. So you would rather fight a war than compromise on giving a second warning? Sarx asked incredulously. We would rather fight a war than compromise on who we are, Rivera said. Our word is our bond. When we say something, we mean it completely. That is not negotiable. That is not subject to diplomatic convenience. That is the core of human integrity. Resolution and new beginnings. 6 weeks later, Admiral Krithex attended an emergency session of the Zelnar Collective Council. All 40 returned ship crews had been debriefed. The human documentation had been analyzed by the military, the diplomatic corps, and independent scholars. The conclusion was unanimous and humbling. Counselor Vren presented the findings. After extensive analysis, we have confirmed that humans have followed this exact policy for 93 years. 74 species have been warned. 51 heeded the warning and were welcomed for diplomatic contact. 23 ignored the warning. Every single one lost their ships, but not their crews. Until us. We are the only species that tested them twice, Vren continued. And we are the only species that faced armed weapons platforms instead of engineering ships. The humans escalated their response based on our escalation. Admiral Sarx arrived armed for battle. They responded with weapons ready to fire, but they still gave us the choice to surrender. Who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. What is your recommendation, Counselor? Vren took a deep breath. We should formally apologize to the United Human Collective. We should request proper diplomatic relations, and we should advocate that other species respect human boundaries. Not because we are weak, but because we are wise enough to recognize when our cultural assumptions do not apply. You want us to apologize, Dravak said quietly. I want us to learn, Vren replied. The humans are not like us. They do not test boundaries. They do not negotiate through strength displays. They say exactly what they mean and enforce it absolutely. That is not weakness. That is a different kind of strength, and unless we adapt our approach, we will lose more ships or start a war we might not win. The council voted. 6 members in favor of Vren's recommendation. 1 abstention. Dravix looked at Krithix. Admiral, you have experienced human policies twice now. Do you believe they would accept a diplomatic apology? Krithix thought about Admiral Chen and Captain Rivera. Their certainty, their consistency, their unexpected kindness to the crews they captured. Yes, he said. I believe they would. The humans do not hold grudges. They simply enforce boundaries. If we respect those boundaries and approach them properly, I believe they would welcome us. 3 months later, a Zelnar diplomatic vessel approached human space through proper channels. They requested permission to enter. They transmitted their peaceful intentions. They waited patiently for a response. Captain Rivera's ship, the Vigilant, met them at the border. This is Captain Rivera, came the familiar voice. Your request for diplomatic entry is approved. Welcome to human space. Please follow these coordinates to the diplomatic station Harmony. Admiral Chen looks forward to meeting with you officially. The Zelnar diplomats followed the coordinates precisely. They were greeted warmly, treated respectfully, and began negotiations that would lead to a productive alliance. But they never forgot the lesson they had learned. When humans give a warning, they mean it absolutely. There are no second chances, no room for misunderstanding, just clear communication and consistent enforcement. And in that consistency, the Zelnar found something unexpected. Trust. When humans promised friendship, they meant it completely. When they offered alliance, they followed through absolutely. Their word was truly their bond in both peace and conflict. The galaxy learned. Slowly but surely other species began to understand. Humans did not repeat themselves, but they did not need to. Their reputation became their greatest defense. Most ships turned back at the first warning. Those that did receive genuine welcome. Those that tested human resolve learned the same lesson the Zelnar had learned. Admiral Krithix retired from military service and became an ambassador. His first posting was to human space. When asked why he chose this assignment, he gave a simple answer. Because humans taught me that strength comes from consistency, that communication works best when you mean what you say, and that the greatest power is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to. Captain Rivera attended his appointment ceremony on the human diplomatic station. She smiled and shook his hand. Welcome, Ambassador. I look forward to working with you. Krithix smiled back. Captain, I promise you that if you ever give me a warning about anything, I will listen the first time. Rivera laughed. That is all we ever ask. And in that moment, Krithix understood the final lesson. Humans did not want to be feared. They wanted to be understood. They wanted their words to be taken seriously so that they never had to prove themselves through violence. They wanted peace, but only peace built on mutual respect and clear boundaries. It was a lesson the galaxy was still learning. But for those who learned it well, humans proved to be the most loyal and reliable allies imaginable. Because when a human made a promise, they kept it absolutely. Just like their warnings.